Hello, my name is Sarah Donkers. I'm a physiotherapist and a neuroscientist, and I am connecting with you today from sunny Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I work in the College of Medicine at the University of Saskatchewan, and I get to teach the neurology content to our students training to be healthcare professionals. I also get to spend most of my time researching neurorehabilitation interventions with a focus on promoting neural recovery for individuals living with multiple sclerosis. So thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to sharing some information with you on the essentials of being active with multiple sclerosis. So today's talk will be broken into 4 main parts. I will briefly give you an overview of the current state of research evidence. I'll then touch on a few key terms to help clarify the different types of physical activity and exercise in section 2. And then this will lead us into section 3, which will talk about guidelines and clinical recommendations for exercising and being physically active with multiple sclerosis. And of course, we'll wrap up focusing on application. So we'll try to apply all this information where I will share some tips and resources. So let's dive into part 1. Historically. Historically, exercising with multiple sclerosis was actually advised against. It was thought that exercise could potentially exacerbate multiple sclerosis. It could perhaps make certain symptoms like fatigue or heat sensitivity worse, and potentially trigger flare-ups. However, please know that this is now outdated thinking. We have lots of research over the last 20 years. So this is just a pictorial representation. So when I say we have lots of research over the last 20 years, this comes from a quick search in PubMed, which is an online database that archives research from biomedical and life science journals. So I just searched exercise and multiple sclerosis, and I narrowed it to research being done in humans over the last 20 years. So on the far left, you'll see 2000, and this goes all the way up to August 2001. But when I say a lot of research is being done, there was 326 articles published in 2020 alone on exercise and physical activity in humans, subjects living with multiple sclerosis. So you can see there was about 20 here in 2000, and it was growing up to about 100 in 2010, and it has consistently been over 200 publications, so research experiment results being published, 200 a year consistently since 2013. So that is a lot of research. So trust me when I say we now have evidence to say that please be active. Being physically active and exercising when living with multiple sclerosis is now known to be safe. It is actually a very important component of maintaining wellness. And some even propose it to be the most important non-pharmaceutical intervention. So we know that being physically active really is a critical component of living well with MS, not just for your physical health, but also psychosocial benefits, so good for mental health, psychological health, sense of coping. So if you take away anything from this presentation, hopefully it's that confidence in being active with MS. So if you're already active, continue to do the things you like. If you're not already active, that's okay, because you don't have to be an athlete or a gym lover to get benefits. We know that anything is better than nothing. So what to do, I'll get into some suggestions later on, but what to do really depends on your goals, your individual preferences and likes, your current ability or limitations based on your MS, and also your current fitness starting levels. So benefits of being physically active with MS. Outside of multiple sclerosis, we all know we should probably be a little more active than we are. Regular exercise is really good for us. So you still get all those general health benefits. But all that research I showed you, or research results I showed you, let us know how important it is to be active now that you've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I hope to help you understand why, provide some education and hopefully motivation on how to be physically active and how to help you get started or where to look for more resources. So what are these benefits that research is showing us? Well, first of all, it can improve your physical fitness. So with physical fitness, we talk about things like your muscle strength and power and endurance. We talk about things like cardiorespiratory or aerobic capacity, cardiometabolic health, and body composition. So body composition is just the percent of your body weight that is lean muscle tissue versus fat versus bone. So we know exercise can improve all of that. We also know it can improve mobility. So mobility is really about how you're getting around, maybe walking, maybe transfers, maybe wheelchair. But exercising and physical activity can improve the sense of ease and efficiency with your movement. It can also help us maintain walking abilities and balance and minimizing falls. Also minimizing risk of injuries with falls and ease of getting up after a fall. It can help with symptom management, which is a really important part of living well with MS. So lots of evidence for fatigue, for neurogenic pain, for secondary musculoskeletal pain, as well as spasticity. And it can help with sleep. Also, we know that if you sleep better, it can further lead to better management of things like fatigue, pain, and spasticity. Physical activity can help with our mood, help minimize anxiety and depressive symptoms. There's lots of research currently being done on the role of exercise in actual cognitive impairments, such as processing speed. So we'll know more about that in the near future from research. But I mentioned already, it does have a role in helping us maintain our general health and comorbidities, and that links to influencing outcomes in multiple sclerosis. So a comorbidity can be defined as any additional disease that coexists in an individual, and these diseases can influence the outcome of your MS, so such as diabetes or heart disease. So I just wanted to mention that vascular comorbidity in MS actually has a lot of research on it. So just one study here showed that having both MS and a vascular comorbidity was associated with needing a cane on average 6 years earlier. So really it's important to think about those additional benefits of being active with MS. And it can have a great role in helping us manage and ideally prevent vascular conditions like hypertension, hyperlipidemia, and maybe heart disease. So, exercise can positively improve your independence, help you maintain engagement and participation in the things in your life that are meaningful to you, which can lead to an increased quality of life despite multiple sclerosis. And some of the most exciting research going on right now is what is the role of different exercise intensities and different timings of intervening with exercise to actually influence the multiple sclerosis disease course itself. So yes, an exciting time in MS research with exercise and physical activity. I just want to take a moment here and point out that exercise won't cure your MS. It won't eliminate your underlying neurological impairments. However, it does have numerous benefits, and it will help you manage your symptoms, help you to better cope, and ideally minimize the impact of the symptoms from your MS on your life, which, as I mentioned, the goal is to lead to longer-term engagement in your meaningful life tasks. Exercise when you're first getting started might actually cause a temporary worsening in the short term. So this is sometimes called pseudo exacerbations. But please know that it is considered safe, and overall it does not increase your rate of relapse or cause flares in MS. and exercising at the right dose over time will actually help you manage your symptoms. So when you're getting started, after a bit of that bout of exercise, you might feel more tired. You might feel things like weakness in a certain area of your body, such as your foot. So foot drop is a common symptom in multiple sclerosis. You might feel like immediately after a bout of exercise, if you've stressed that area, that symptom gets worse. But it is temporary and it does recover. And as you continue to engage in exercise, you'll actually realize those symptoms, if done at the right dose and individualized to you, they actually get better. So basically the point here is that please know it's safe. Running marathons is not going to cure your MS, but know that we now have the research to show that it is safe to run marathons when you have MS, if that is something you'd like to do. So yeah, really when it comes to being active and exercising with MS, I want you to focus on the known benefits and how you're investing in your long-term health and wellness. So this is just a graph that comes from some of the work trying to understand the role exercise has in disease modifying or in that overall MS disease course. So if you recall from the benefits section, I mentioned that a lot of research is currently ongoing in this area. So I just want to draw your attention to what these different colors represent in the graph. So on the bottom, there's the blue. So this theoretically represents lifelong exercisers. The green is the individuals who increase their exercise and physical activity after diagnosis, and the red is representing a traditional MS disease course. So the dashed vertical lines, the red and the blue, represent a theoretical, diagnosis. So the theory, based on our current understanding of the role of exercise in MS, is that regular physical activity can not only delay the onset of symptoms, but it can also delay the relapse rate and potentially rate of progression, ultimately keeping you functional for longer. So research shows that in MS, potentially the most benefit comes from having adopted healthy lifestyles and regular physical activity early. But know it is never too late to start. So even if you're not an exerciser now, that's okay. Because even after diagnosis, there's other research showing that some of the most benefit comes in those individuals who are the most sedentary to begin with. So this graph here just represents the amount of change for the number of increased moderate to vigorous physical activity. So a lower value on this graph means a good thing. And if you look at the first two dots, so you'll see individuals who were less active per week, but made small increases to improve how active they were, actually had the greatest benefit. So this slope here on the graph actually shows improved benefit. So there is benefit from being more physically active, but I guess a thing to keep in mind is if you're not already an exerciser, if you don't resonate with being an exerciser, that's okay. Small changes can actually lead to great improvement, and exercise has been shown to reduce the risk of premature death. So we're going to move on to some terminology now. The first thing to emphasize is this spectrum of being physically active versus sedentary behavior, and where does exercise fall into this spectrum. Research is really showing the importance of considering across the spectrum and also considering the intensity of activity levels. I have been using the words physical activity and exercise a lot. So what do they mean and how are they related? Well, physical activity is simply movement of the body that uses energy. It gets our muscles activating, it puts load through our bones, it helps increase our circulation, it relieves pressure. It's really anything that requires effort or exertion on at least one of our body symptoms. So physical activity should not be mistaken with exercise. So exercise is actually a subcategory of being physically active. However, it's a more specified type of movement. So it's specifically planned, it's structured, it's repetitive, it has certain intensity targets associated with it, and it has this purpose of trying to be progressed in a sense that the objective is really to improve or maintain one or more components of physical fitness. So I'll talk about some of these in the next slide. So physical activity is any movement. Physical activity includes exercise. Exercise has some more structure, planning, and intensities to it. So physical activity can include any body movement that's done as part of everyday life. So playing, working, active transport, household chores, gardening, and numerous benefits to both, especially when you're increasing your physical activity levels to decrease your sedentary behavior. So sedentary behavior is defined as any waking behavior that doesn't burn much energy. So sitting still or in a reclining or lying posture. So research reports that being sedentary or long bouts of sedentary behavior is its own additional risk factor on lifespan and health. So data from people living with MS has shown that sedentary behavior is associated with higher blood pressure and decreased brain volume. So the point I'm trying to make here is that there's a spectrum, and you don't have to fall in love with exercise and become a gym junkie to get benefits. That's great. Exercise has its definitely has its role. But if you find yourself more on the sedentary end, you can do little things throughout your day to start breaking up that sedentary behavior and begin to reap the benefits of being physically active with MS. So the other thing I want to talk about is intensity range. So this intensity is really talking about how hard you're working. It is a moving target, right? Because as we get maybe more fit, we have to physically do more or add intensity, like speed or weights to be challenged at the same level. But on the other end of the spectrum, as an individual with MS potentially has more impairments or physical limitations, a less type of movement could be considered very intense. So this intensity is quite individualized. It typically is designed to represent how hard you're working. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is that there's intensity ranges across different types of being physically active. So from light, moderate to vigorous. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about types of exercise. So keeping in mind that exercise is a type of physical activity that is structured, repetitive, and progressed. And then so these are some terms you've probably heard about, and I often get asked, where should I start? Should I prioritize yoga? Should I prioritize weightlifting or aerobic activity? So I'll just start by talking about these different types and their targets, general targets. So one type of exercise is cardiovascular activity. This is also known as aerobic training. So these are things that get your lung and your heart pumping faster. So we know for individuals living with MS, we want to try and engage in at least some moderate bouts of cardiovascular activity, 3 to 5 times a week, building up towards 10 to 30 minutes of continuous activity. And if you do measure your heart rate, we're really aiming for about 40 to 60% of someone's max heart rate. So then we have a resistance category. So resistance is really about creating improved neuromuscular capacity and strengthening the skeletal elements of our musculoskeletal system. So for resistance, we're really aiming to engage our major muscle groups in contracting under load. So aiming for at least 2 times a week of putting your major muscle groups under load, so lifting weights that are more challenging than you lift during your everyday life. So we really think about pushing and pulling, your chest, your back, your shoulders, your arms, your abs and back and legs, and then of course your calves. So this can be broken up. Some people just, do really small bouts, like 20 minutes, where they're focusing maybe on their upper body, on a Monday and a Wednesday, and their lower body, maybe on a Tuesday and Thursday. All of this type of exercise is really individualized, which I'll come back to in a few slides. So another type of exercise is flexibility. This is really important in MS, especially if you are experiencing any sort of spasticity or tone or tightness in your muscles, neurological tightness in your muscles. Flexibility is really designed to improve or maintain muscle length and range of motion. So things like flexibility as well as mobility really should be done every day. So mobility or movements are things that should be done every day to take our joints through their full available range of motion, and really to prevent this loss of movement as we age, or as we're unable to move our joints through range of motions due to things like weakness, paresis, or spasticity. So mobility is really focusing on taking our bodies out of positions we tend to spend most of the day in, like sitting. So the last category I'll touch on here is balance or neuromotor. This is often referred to. So sometimes this can include mobility into it, but this is really about building our body awareness and building our body's ability to have good postural control, coordination, and reaction time. So there's different styles and approaches you might hear about, such as yoga, Pilates, and Tai Chi. These tend to be a blended approach, so often they are really challenging our mobility and building that neuromotor category. Sometimes if they're more intense, they might also have an element of muscle strengthening and our cardiovascular endurance to it. Okay, so what type of exercise is best? Isn't that the million-dollar question? And this is what I have to say to you guys. It really comes down to what you will do. The best program is one you will do. Know that there are a range of benefits in all type of physical activity. So, minimize your sedentary behavior or break up bouts by sedentary behavior with small little bouts of increased physical activity to start. Maybe then progressing to adding in some sort of structured exercise. So things like type, intensity, and duration can result in different outcomes. So what is best really depends on what you are prioritizing at a given point in time. So helping people become active or maintain their physical activity and exercise levels with MS is really about finding an individualized approach that works best for you based on your needs, your abilities, your preferences, and then helping you prioritize and build a program that works for you at that point in time. So really right now it's about creating and maintaining this habit of being physically active. So as I mentioned, it's about considering your goals, your primary reasons for being active, because regardless of what you do, we know from research, it has to be something that you will do and something that works for you in order to give you the benefit. Okay, so what to do? Guidelines do exist. So these guidelines I have in the next 4 slides. I'm not going to spend much time on, but I included them so you can go back and read them. Know that these guidelines are evidence-based and expert recommended targets. So there's something you can build towards, and there's something that's safe for you to do and to work at that level. However, one more note on these guidelines. So although many of you watching today are newly diagnosed, so that unites everybody watching, the reality of multiple sclerosis is that how MS has affected you at onset, so what your MS looks like even if you're newly diagnosed, is very unique to each individual. Some of you may have no visible symptoms or impairments right now. Some may have primarily invisible symptoms. and others may have more physical symptoms and functional limitations right from the onset. So there may be some individuals also who completely recover after diagnosis, some who continue to get worse, and some who are stable but had a really bad disabling attack right away. So therefore, I've included in the next 4 slides the evidence-based recommendations for across the MS spectrum. But really, the thing to keep in mind is individualizing it. So you need to consider what your starting ability, both in terms of MS, but also general fitness are. You need to consider your likes, and you also need to consider your whys, right? So really start building that why. That's what's going to keep you going in the long run. And I always encourage people to ask for help here. There's so much information. I've thrown lots of terminology, lots of benefits and research findings at you. Someone, peers, loved ones, specialists, right? Healthcare providers with experience working in MS, they can all help you choose what to prioritize right here, right now. So I mentioned that these guidelines exist. I've included the name of the article. This is a 2020 publication. And then I've also summarized the key findings based on your physical limitations from multiple sclerosis. And you'll see I actually mentioned most of these already in the terminology. So aerobic, building up your tolerance, resisting 2 to 3 times a week of your major muscle groups. So I just want to point out this slide is for individuals who are more mild to moderately affected to start. And then here, when your physical limitations are more challenged and perhaps you're a regular wheelchair user, there are also some guidelines, but this is an area where a lot of research is going on. I can say as of right now that it is safe to be physically active in this stage of MS as well. We just shifted a little, right? Because your starting ability and fitness level has changed. And also, there's so much to manage. So that was exercise guidelines. And remember, there's also lifestyle or leisure physical activity. So that's really encouraging you guys to focus on ways throughout your day to break up long bouts of sedentary behavior. Okay. So tips, we're coming into section 4 here, my tips and resources. When I'm working with someone living with MS, either clinically or through my research, it's always an individualized approach. We work through these things like, what is your starting ability level? What are your goals? What are your likes? What is your motivation? What keeps you going? What are your supports? What's reasonable and feasible for you? And then we create goals and a starting plan from there. So if you're already active and maybe you're less physically affected by your MS currently, and I was seeing you, then I would encourage you to try and challenge the nervous system. And I look to assess these individuals and their abilities under more challenging tasks and conditions. So I focus more on things like speed and agility, coordination, jumping, and hopping. So higher level, both physically but also neurologically challenging, because research is showing that even if you have no overt physical symptoms, but you've had that diagnosis of MS, that you might have some limitations in this higher level, and that is trainable. So if you are already active and you have been more physically affected by your MS, then I work on trying to build body awareness, and we focus on increasing your nervous system's ability to realize what you can do despite some of your neurological limitations. So really working on building alignment and balance and postural control. So there's lots of options across the MS spectrum, and this applies to everybody. It doesn't have to be fancy. So you don't need a structured exercise program with lots of equipment and going to the gym. If that's an option for you and if that's what you like, awesome, keep going. But don't let that be a barrier or a hurdle towards you. You can do simple things like dance or arm boxing while you're waiting for your toast to pop. And I know it seems silly, but if you start with like 30 seconds of that and you sprinkle that throughout your day, that's 30 seconds you weren't being sedentary, but also that 30 seconds is a chance for your systems to be challenged, right? And that's what's going to give us our benefit. So try to sneak things in throughout your day. I often talk about, sneaky sit to stands. So before you're about to settle into the couch after a work day or after a busy day, regardless of what you're doing, try to sneak in a pausing before your bottom hits the couch, or sneak in a few squats or sits to stands. So it doesn't have to be fancy. You can find ways to break up your sedentary behavior by sprinkling little bouts of increased physical activity throughout your daily day-to-day living. It's important for people living with MS to have a variety of options. There is going to be fluctuations, even in periods where your MS is stable or inactive. You're going to feel these variations in the intensities of your symptoms. And when you're feeling your best, you're going to the gym and doing these exercises. If that's your only option, what do you do when you're feeling your worst, right? So you really want to find a plan that gives you variety so that you can commit to that habit of being active, regardless of how you're feeling. And also, I encourage people to find a balance across their weeks. So I told you there's so many different types of exercise. What do you do? Where do you start? You might have a friend who's telling you about how yoga changed their life. You might have another friend telling you about how important boxing is. It's really about finding what works for you, knowing what your goals and your reasons for being active are, and then we don't have to do it all at once, right? So maybe right now you're focusing on aerobic. Maybe right now you're focusing on weightlifting. Maybe right now you're just focusing on realizing what your physical activity patterns are in a 24-hour period. And then you can make a plan from there. So I really encourage people to consider monitoring. So what I mean by that is doing things like looking at your step count, or looking at how long you've been sedentary in a given bout, right? Outside of our sleeping hours, of course, because this can help give us feedback on sneaky ways to increase physical activity and minimize sedentary behavior. And just really keep in mind that anything is better than nothing. So if you're in that contemplation stage, you're exhausted, it's maybe at the end of a work day, and you're like, oh, I'm too tired, I don't want to be active. Just in that moment, do something physically active. Throw a temper tantrum, right? At least then you're using your muscles and you just did a little bit of physical activity, and hopefully it'll bring a little smile to your face. So my last few slides are resources. Before I go into showing a list of resources, I want to emphasize how valuable you are as your own resource. So always start with yourself, right? Start by reflecting on what you like. Rate your current level of importance. What do you value? If you don't like exercise, what potentially would being active help you continue to do? And you can find your whys that way. You are an expert in you. And as time goes on, you're going to become experts in managing your MS. So just know that this is an important and valuable source of knowledge. And then also, in using yourself as a resource, maybe try to find ways to monitor what you're currently doing, because that can give us a good idea of where to start. So maybe keep diaries. I mentioned already, there's a lot of affordable watches like step count, heart rate, amount of sedentary behavior, and also a lot of smartphones that can even do that for us. So you are a great resource. Ask for help, ask your peers. There's the MS Society, right? So there's the Navigator, there's support groups. There's individuals that could give you recommendations for your local resources, such as specialist or community-based programs in your area. And they might be able to put you in contact with someone that can help you talk through these decision-making processes and prioritize your starting plan. And of course, I'm always happy to be a resource, so I've included my emails here. So just something to make us smile. It doesn't matter how many resources you have. If you don't know how to use them, it will never be enough. Okay, so 2 slides with resources here. This one is a great one through our MS Society of Canada. It actually has a nice goal setting and action plan template in there that can help you get started. These other ones are lists to online resources if you're looking for something more directed, giving you an idea, okay, what are some movements that might be right for me? What are other people living with MS doing? This next slide of resources are more resources to deliver programs or help you actually be active. So this NeuroSask and this Time at Home are also run through our MS Society of Canada. They are done virtually. NeuroSask is a seated movement program, so maybe for individuals who have more balance, fatigue, dizziness, or maybe just tired. There's lots of benefits in the mobility we offer here with NeuroSask, and it also comes with health and wellness education program through our Connect sessions. And then this Time at Home is a virtual program. It's standing, it's challenging more your balance and walking for individuals who are looking for that. So there's lots of resources out there, guys. And in summary, I hope you understand and feel more confident that being physically active is a safe, effective, and very important part of living well with MS. I encourage you to find ways to minimize your sedentary behavior through increasing your daily physical activity levels, no matter how small. Sprinkle them throughout the day. And then perhaps strive to add in some sort of structured exercise program. Make sure this habit is based on something you like. It's important that it's individualized, that it's monitored and ideally progressed, because your needs, your likes, your abilities are all going to change. And I encourage you to ask for help and remember to make it fun, because the best program is really one you would do. So on that note, one more thing to hopefully make you smile. My favorite exercise is a cross between a lunge and a crunch. It's called lunch, and that is where I am headed. So thank you guys all for attending and listening. My email is here. I'm always happy to field questions either about the presentation or about physical rehabilitation in MS, and try to connect you with resources out there that will work for you. Thank you so much.